I gave up my apartment to move back home and care for my depressed mom, then found out my supportive sister was secretly paying her therapist to say I was unstable. I gave up my life quietly. No dramatic speech. No slammed doors. Just packed 2 suitcases, handed my keys to my roommate, and drove 2,000 miles south because mom stopped answering calls. When I got home, she was sitting at the kitchen table in the same robe she'd worn for 3 days, staring at a cold cup of tea. She didn't cry when she saw me, just whispered, "You didn't have to come." But I did. For 8 months, I became her shadow, made her meals, sat with her during panic attacks, drove her to therapy every Tuesday with Dr. Langley, the therapist my sister Mara had carefully vetted. Mara lived in Seattle, sent flowers every month, and called weekly with cheerful updates. "Mom sounds better. You're doing an amazing job." I couldn't do what you're doing. I believed her. Until the day Dr. Langley asked, "Have you been sleeping, Nina? You seem intense." I laughed it off. But then came the notes in mom's file, left open accidentally during a session. Daughter exhibits enmeshed behavior, possible boundary issues, maybe exacerbating patient's dependency. My stomach dropped. That wasn't me. I encouraged mom to text friends, took walks so she'd have space, even set up video calls with her book club. But the next week, Dr. Langley gently suggested I take a step back. Said mom needed less intensity, more calm energy. That night, I found an envelope in the recycling bin, unopened but addressed to Dr. Langley. Return address, Mara's condo in Seattle. Inside, a check for $2,200. Memo line, family consultation, April. And a note. Please document Nina's overinvolvement. We're worried she's becoming unstable. I sat on the bathroom floor for an hour shaking. Mara hadn't been supporting me. She'd been building a case against me. And the woman I trusted to help mom was being paid to pathologize my love. I didn't confront Mara right away. Part of me still hoped it was a mistake. Maybe the note was old. Maybe the check was for something else. But that night, I logged into mom's patient portal. She'd given me access in case of emergencies. Under billing, I found it. Monthly payments from Mara Reyes, labeled Family Consultation Services. $200 every month for the past 6 months. Same day each month. Same memo line. Monitor daughter's influence. My hands went cold. This wasn't concern, this was surveillance. I started paying attention in sessions. Dr. Langley would ask mom things like, "Does Nina get upset when you talk to Mara?" Or, "Has she ever said you'd be lost without her?" Questions that sounded caring, but were leading, planting seeds. Mom, exhausted and foggy from antidepressants, would nod slowly. Maybe, a little. And just like that, my love became pathology. I tried talking to mom alone. "Do you feel smothered by me?" She looked confused. "No, mija. You're my peace. But Dr. Langley says I'm too involved." She frowned. I told her, "You're all I have." That's when I realized Mara wasn't just manipulating the therapist. She was editing mom's reality from 200 miles away, texting her between sessions, framing my care as control, my presence as pressure. One afternoon, I found mom crying in the kitchen. "What's wrong?" I asked, turning off the stove. "She said you're going to leave," mom whispered. "Mara said once I'm better, you'll go back to your real life and never come back." I sat down hard on the floor. I'm not going anywhere. But what if I'm never better? I held her, didn't promise she'd heal, just promised I'd stay. That night, I called Mara. "You're paying Dr. Langley to turn mom against me," I said, voice low. Silence. Then softly, "I'm protecting her, Nina. You're so deep in it, you don't see how intense you've become. You canceled your life. You don't date. You don't even leave the house. It's not healthy for either of you. That's my choice." "Is it?" she shot back. "Or are you using her to avoid facing your own emptiness?" The words hit like glass, because part of me wondered the same thing. But then I remembered mom's hand in mine that morning, how she squeezed it 3 times, our old "I love you" code from when I was little. That wasn't dependency. That was trust. I hung up. The next day, I stopped attending therapy sessions with mom. Not because I gave up, but because I refused to be weaponized in the room. Dr. Langley called me later. "Your absence is helping," she said gently. "Mom seems lighter." I almost laughed. Lighter because the problem left the room. But that night, mom came to my door in her robe, eyes wide with panic. "Why aren't you coming to my appointments?" "Because they're making you doubt me," I said. She grabbed my arms. "Never. You're the only one who sees me." We sat on my bed for hours, silent, just breathing together. No performance, no notes, no observers, just us. And in that quiet, I knew. I wasn't crazy. I was necessary. And no paid narrative could erase that. Mom started forgetting to take her meds. Not out of neglect, out of fear. "I don't want to feel numb when you're here," she told me one morning, holding the pill bottle like it might burn her. Dr. Langley called it treatment resistance. Mara called it Nina undermining her care. But I saw the truth. Mom was choosing moments with me over chemical calm. And I couldn't blame her. Then came the email, not to me, to the family group thread Mara had created for updates. Subject line, "Important concern about Nina, please read." It was from Dr. Langley. "Over the past month, Nina has exhibited increasingly rigid behavior. She discourages outside contact, questions medical advice, and appears emotionally dependent on her mother's continued illness. I recommend temporary separation for both their sakes. Mara replied instantly. I've been worried about this. Should we look into respite care? Our cousin chimed in. She gave up so much. Maybe she lost herself. No one asked me what happened. No one called. I sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone, feeling like a ghost in my own life. That afternoon, Mom found me folding laundry, my hands moving on autopilot. They think you're sick, she said quietly. I know. She sat beside me, took my hand. You're not. I feel like I am sometimes. Then let them think it, she whispered. As long as we know the truth. But the damage was done. A week later, Mara flew in for a wellness check. She hugged me tight at the door, all concern and jasmine perfume. I'm not here to fight, she said. Just to help. She spent 3 days watching me like I might snap. Took notes while I made dinner. Asked Mom leading questions when I left the room. On her last night, she cornered me in the hallway. You need to get your own life back, Nina. This isn't love. It's obsession. I looked at her, really looked. Saw the fear behind her eyes. Not for Mom, for herself. What are you so afraid of? I asked. That you'll never leave, she said, voice breaking. And I'll always be the daughter who wasn't enough to stay. The honesty stunned me. All this time, I thought she was punishing me, but she was punishing herself and using me as proof she'd failed. I didn't argue, didn't defend, just said, I'm not your redemption, Mara, and Mom isn't your scoreboard. She left the next morning without saying goodbye. But 2 days later, a package arrived. Inside, Mom's old journal, the one I'd seen her scribbling in but never read. On the first page, dated 6 months ago, Mara called today, said Nina's too much. But when Nina sits with me, the dark feels smaller. I don't want less of her, I want more time. Page after page, the same theme. She doesn't fix me. She stays. If I die tomorrow, I'll have held her hand today. That's enough. I cried for hours, not from anger, but relief. Someone had seen me and believed I was enough. That night, I stopped trying to prove I wasn't crazy. I just kept showing up. Quietly, fully. No audience, no defense. Just love, unedited. Mom's heart gave out on a Tuesday morning. Quietly, in her sleep, hand resting on the journal she'd been writing in the night before. No drama. No warning. Just gone. I found her when I brought her tea, like always. The cup shattered on the floor. I didn't clean it up for hours. Just sat beside her bed, holding her cold fingers, whispering all the things I never got to say out loud. Mara arrived the next day. Eyes red, voice steady. She hugged me once, then went straight to organizing. Called the funeral home. Ordered flowers. Set up the obituary. You should rest, she told me gently, like I was fragile glass. I've got this. But I didn't want her to have this. This was mine. The last thing I could do for Mom. I took over the arrangements myself. Chose the lilacs she loved. Picked the poem Dad used to read her. Wrote the eulogy alone in my room with her journal open on my lap. At the service, Mara stood close, smiling through tears, accepting condolences like she'd been there every day. A neighbor squeezed my arm and whispered, "You must be exhausted. She really leaned on you, didn't she?" I just nodded. Didn't correct her. After the burial, we gathered at the house. Mara poured wine, passed around photos, told stories about Mom before the sadness. All of them from years ago. None from the time I was here. It was like my 8 months never happened. Then she pulled out an envelope. The lawyer sent this. Mom's will. I braced myself. But it wasn't about money. Mom left the house to both of us equally. Savings split down the middle. Even her jewelry. Nina gets the pearl earrings. Mara the gold locket. Fair, kind. But beneath the legal pages was a letter, addressed to both of us in Mom's shaky script. If you're reading this, I'm gone. And if you're fighting, stop. Nina stayed when it was hard. Mara held hope when it was far. You both loved me in the only ways you knew how. Don't let grief turn that into guilt. Forgive each other. Forgive yourselves. And please, don't lose each other too. Mara read it silently, tears falling onto the paper. Then she looked at me. Really looked. Not as the problem sister, but as the girl who'd shared a bedroom with her, who'd braided her hair before prom, who'd held her hand at Dad's funeral. I'm sorry, she said, voice raw. I was so scared you'd replace me. I tried to erase you instead. I didn't say it's okay. It wasn't, but I handed her the journal. She wrote about you too. Every week, Mara flipped through it, sobbing quietly at entries like, Mara called today. Heard her laugh. Felt like sunlight. She sends flowers like she's saying, I see you from far away, I do. We sat on the porch for a long time after, not talking, just watching the sunset paint the sky pink, like we did as kids. No grand reconciliation, no promises, just two daughters grieving the same woman, finally seeing each other again. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel invisible. I just felt tired and human. 3 weeks after the funeral, I started packing. Not dramatically, not in anger. Just one box at a time. Books, photos, the chipped mug Mom always saved for me. The house felt too big now, echoing with silence where her breathing used to be. Mara came by every few days days, bringing groceries, folding laundry, sitting with me on the porch without needing to fill the quiet. She didn't ask me to stay, didn't offer solutions, just showed up. One afternoon, she handed me a manila envelope. From Dr. Langley, she said. She closed her notes. Inside, a formal letter. Upon reflection and termination of private consultation with Ms. Mara Reyes, I recognize my documentation was influenced by biased input. Nina Reyes exhibited consistent, compassionate care. Any characterization of instability was unfounded. I apologize for my role in this harm. No grand confession. No lawsuit-worthy admission. Just a quiet correction from someone who finally saw what she'd helped distort. I tucked it into Mom's journal and didn't mention it again. Mara watched me. Are you going back to Chicago? I don't know, I said. My sublet's gone. My old job moved on. Feels like that life ended when I got in the car 8 months ago. She nodded. You could stay here. We could figure it out. Split the mortgage. Take turns. I looked around the kitchen, the table where Mom stared into space, the couch where she cried, the window where she finally smiled again last spring. This place held all of it, the weight and the grace, but staying felt like waiting for a ghost. I need to find out who I am outside of caring for someone, I said softly. Not because it wasn't real, but because I disappeared in it. She didn't argue, just said, then go. But don't vanish like I did. We hugged, a real one, not performative. And for the first time, it didn't feel like we were measuring each other. The next week, I drove to the coast alone. Sat on a bench in Encinitas, watching the waves crash and pull back. I thought about calling an old friend, applying for jobs, renting a room somewhere cheap. But mostly I just sat, letting myself feel the exhaustion in my bones, the grief that had no shape, the strange guilt of surviving. A seagull landed nearby, pecking at a crumb, unbothered, present. I realized I hadn't been present in years, not really. Always braced for the next crisis, the next call, the next collapse. Now there was nothing to brace for, just me. And the slow, uncertain work of learning how to breathe without someone else's breath to follow. That night, I booked a one-way ticket to Portland. Not because I had a plan, but because it rained there and rain felt honest. Before I left 2 things on the kitchen counter. Mom's journal, open to the last page, she wrote, "Today, Nina laughed." I remembered how. My key. Not as surrender, as release. Some loves don't need ownership to last. They just need to be honored and then gently let go. Portland rain fell like a sigh the day I arrived. Soft, constant, washing everything clean without asking for thanks. I rented a room above a bookstore, paid first and last month with the last of my savings. The walls were thin, the heater clanked all night, and the window overlooked an alley full of overflowing dumpsters. But it was mine. No one needed me here. No one expected anything. For weeks, I did nothing but walk. Through forests still wet from morning fog, along rivers that didn't care if I spoke or stayed silent. I bought groceries for one, slept past sunrise, cried in the shower where no one could hear. One afternoon, I passed a community center offering free art therapy for caregivers. I almost walked on. But something made me stop. Inside, a woman about my age handed me a lump of clay. "No talking," she said gently. "Just feel." I rolled the clay between my palms until my fingers ached. Didn't make anything. Just held it. Afterward, she offered me a volunteer shift, helping set up chairs, making tea for others who'd lost someone they'd spent years holding together. I said yes. Not because I was healed, but because I remembered how it felt to sit alone in a room full of people who didn't see you. Months passed like that. Slow. Uneven. Some days I woke up and forgot Mom was gone. Other days, I'd catch a whiff of lavender soap and have to pull over while driving. Then a letter came. Not email, real paper in Mara's handwriting. The house sold, more than we expected. I put half in an account for you, no strings. I started seeing a therapist myself. Turns out I've been running from guilt since Dad died. I miss you. Not the version of you I invented. The real one. No need to reply. Just know you're not forgotten. I read it 3 times, then tucked it into the back of Mom's journal, the one I still kept on my nightstand. I didn't take the money, not yet. But I texted her, "Thank you." She replied instantly, "How's the rain?" We talked for an hour. About nothing important. A bad coffee order, a show she liked, the way our old dog used to snore. No apologies, no grand confessions. Just 2 sisters remembering how to be ordinary together. Last week, I led my first support circle at the community center. 6 people sat in folding chairs, eyes tired, hands folded tight. I didn't give advice, didn't share my story unless asked. Just said, "You don't have to be strong here, you just have to be." Afterward, a man lingered. "My sister says I ruined Mom's last year by staying too close," he said quietly. I handed him a cup of tea. "Then you loved her the only way you knew how." He nodded, tears in his eyes. Yeah, I guess I did. I walked home in the rain that night, hood up, hands in pockets. No grand victory. No justice served. Just this. I was learning to carry what happened without letting it crush me. And sometimes that was enough.